So what I want to do today is go through some basic strategies. Okay. I want to go through just 2 basic strategies that we can start with immediately when it comes to crypto. A really cool strategy on getting access to money without having to sell the crypto, without having to get rid of this asset that we're accumulating. And again, it's actually very similar to what a lot of these elites do in the real world. And the concept can be used in many different types of assets and different tools that exist in the real world. You know, when I say real world, I mean outside of Web3, outside of blockchain, but it works for both. And if you do it properly, you can essentially create this generational wealth engine that you never have to sell the assets, especially these assets that we're accumulating in blockchain, that once you start learning the fundamentals, you'll see the value in the long-term accumulation of it, but also not have to incur taxes for yourself while you're alive, as well as the generations after you. So the idea is to get you familiar with these concepts and this way of seeing it and relating to it so that you can feel the confidence to do it, to do the steps. All right, so let's go through these concepts, okay? Very simple ones, really. And I'm just trying to, again, go back to some fundamentals and just bring back the clarity of that and how much, like everyone that's here, how much ahead of the curve you guys are. Like you have no idea. The fact that you're here to be aware of this and to open up to it is huge compared to most. All right, so first things first concept that we can talk about is very simple, is just going from fiat to stablecoin, okay? Fiat to stablecoin, which comparably, you can also call going from speculation to the house. That's the right one? Yeah, the house or the bank, right? You're going from being the gambler. I guess that's the one, the gambler to the house. And this can just be the bank. I don't know if there's another, what's the antithesis of speculation? Utilization. What am I doing? So this is really the first thing that you can do for yourself when it comes to like strategy. I mean, this is a big one. And this is more of a perspective shift. You know, this is more of like changing that relationship piece to the system. So what does this mean? Well, first thing you can do, the first thing we can do is start letting go of this idea that we don't have control, right? Letting go of this idea that we're just the gamblers. So what we're doing is we're shifting from that, oh, we're just the speculators, we're just the gamblers. No, we can be in more control. We can actually use now these tools that are available to us to strategize better, to create more strategy long-term, you know, to become the bank, to become the house. And so why are we still trusting these banks, these central Web 2 systems with that wealth, with the accumulation of this energy output? Right? We've accumulated over time. So the first thing you can do, if you, again, this is probably for people that are specifically have already like some savings or some money set aside in a bank, or maybe you want to start doing that. The first thing you can do is go from fiat, the dollar, to a stable coin, to a one-to-one stable coin. And then you start to act as the bank, right? You have a treasure, a cold storage device that you can store the crypto into, and you have stable coins. There's no speculation there. You've just diversified now your wealth into something that you're in possession of. That's the big difference. And there's no speculation. There's no like, I'm betting on this thing, you know, to go up, to go down. No, we're just one-to-one. There might be some fees that you're gonna pay for that transactions or for that transfer, or maybe, you know, depending on which platform you use, you might get something called a slippage, which is a little bit of difference in dollar price, you know, that they charge to be able to buy into the space. But, you know, it's kind of the cost of onboarding right now, unfortunately. It's getting easier. I think this year is going to be a lot easier. There's gonna be a lot less friction from regulators, especially here in the US with Trump being in as a president, which then it kind of like feeds out into the rest of the world. But we can kind of get already ahead of that curve by changing this relationship. And so that's number one strategy, is just get your fiat out of their hands and be in possession of it. Because now that you're in possession of it, you are the bank. You become the bank in that instance. And then the second strategy, once you kind of create that relationship, recreate that relationship, now the next step is, okay, what can I do as the bank? What are the services and products and things that are available to me as the bank? One of the number one ways that I've grown accustomed to, and I've been doing it myself, is the buy, borrow, die concept. Okay, so this concept's called the buy, borrow, die. I didn't come up with that. I saw it somewhere, and I'm just gonna add my own flavor to it. So the die thing might be a little dark there, but everybody dies. Right? We have to think about that. Like, what happens to all this energy that we put out while we were alive? Does it go to your family, or is it just getting continuously siphoned away? And so I'm on the side of like, no, let me structure myself and create a flow, an engine that will make sure that wealth gets built and is protected from these public sector entities, these dead registered entities. Because why? I'm a living, breathing man, and I have rights as a living, breathing man in this plane of existence. Okay. And it's all about how we relate and interact with these public sector systems as opposed to the private sector living, breathing men and women. So again, you're going to start learning more about that as we move forward in these courses, in the course and these lives. But that's the relationship that we kind of have to shift. So the buy, borrow, die concept is fairly simple, especially in crypto. There's again, you have the ability to become a bank, so you can lend, you can borrow, you can use the crypto assets as collateral, to take loans against. And so in the real world, the elites, the simple concept of this in the real world is the income comes in, the income buys assets. So it's mostly commodities and real estate and artwork. That's another thing that's been big that they've been using to store value. And then they now own this asset, which can appreciate over time. My perspective, and again, I'm speaking from this grounded state because I've done the research and connected the dots, so you can believe it or not. But my opinion is that all assets in the real world, what we perceive as the real world and what exists other than blockchain, the dollar price of the assets going up is merely almost a direct one-to-one reflection of the inflation rate of that fiat, of wherever that asset is. Period. Nothing more, nothing less. There might be, maybe specifically for real estate, there might be a variation, there's small variation in the short term, like when you renovate or when you upgrade the house itself. But again, that's still speculation market, right? That's still what somebody's willing to buy and sell it for, right? It's still speculation. With crypto, with blockchain, it's completely different because of the way that the energy flows in that system. The way that the code, that project is coded will determine how the value is stored. And it's not just purely a direct reflection of inflation. I think that's a great example is Bitcoin itself. And not all crypto are created equally. And I think y'all remember in my discovery calls, 99% of these projects are still being built with the same old banking concepts. And so they're still funneling to the few that have the most. So we have to do that work to figure out which ones are toroidal, like which ones are coded with the code, with the fundamentals to keep the energy flowing within itself, regardless of what's happening in these mainstream systems and narratives and public sector systems. So Bitcoin is a great example because encoded into it is deflation, right? That one little thing, there's many things, but just that one little thing, it deflates. That means that the newly created Bitcoin, other than what's already circulating, as time moves forward, less and less of it gets mined out or created or minted, okay? So then that makes it more scarce as time moves forward. So buy, borrow, die. In the fictional world, what do? They take the income, they buy the assets, and then now they have this asset, and then they take loans against it, okay? They take loans against it, so that doesn't create a taxable event. There's no selling. So it's only when you sell the asset and it goes back into fiat, that's a taxable event. If you take a loan against it, that's not a taxable event, and then you can use that money. What the third step, the die, is what they'll do is create an insurance policy that's in the same value of the debt and the tax that is incurred. Now, tax that's incurred, you can be creative with that as well, right? We can separate ourselves completely from tax systems and not have to even pay that if you do it properly through trusts. Which that would be the structure that I would do. I would create a trust to have the assets owned under, and then take out a loan against the assets, through a certificate, through a security that I create, a bond, and then you do a whole life insurance while you're living to cover the costs of that debt, because you're adding value to the whole life insurance as well. It is also growing. Okay, so that value is growing on a yearly basis that you can also take a loan against, and then it all pays for itself when you die. The insurance policy gets distributed, pays off for all the debt, and zeroes out, and then the assets are still there, and it goes to the next generation because it's in a trust. The beneficiaries get the assets, so that's a huge protection there in the real world. In crypto, what you can do that, but in levels. You can do many levels of that. So first thing you can do is you can buy Bitcoin. Okay, when you buy Bitcoin, you can then take a loan against Bitcoin. And this can be anywhere between 50 to, I've seen up to 80% for Bitcoin specifically. 50 to, no, let me become conservative, 70% LTV, which means loan to value ratio. So if I have $100 in Bitcoin, I can take out $50 to $70, which then I'll get stable coins, okay, in the loan process. And then I have these stable coins, which if you want at that point, you can then cash back out to the real world and use it, to invest into something else or to use it for everyday purposes. I wouldn't recommend that to use that portion of it. What I would recommend is to take the collateral that you got here, to take the cash that you got here and then go into another crypto asset, specifically the one that we've been talking about. So again, this is just one strategy. There's many ways to do this. Invest stablecoin into PLS, because with PLS, I can take that PLS, which by the way, at this moment with PLS, we're going to talk about that market here in a bit. I mean, I see that specific ecosystem by the end of this year so I've done the research. This is an interesting piece of information. I think right now it's either top 4 or top 5 volume market, like an amount of volume and liquidity that's in that specific market in the PLS ecosystem. So, but it doesn't show up on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko. It doesn't show up as that because it's mostly in decentralized exchanges. It's not in the central exchanges. So for some reason, that's a glitch, glitch in the matrix. It's not showing the true data. So you have to dig a little deeper to see. There's a platform that will pull the data directly from the blockchain itself and then give the dollar value to it. So even central exchanges are tapping into the blockchain itself. So it's going to pull that data as well. But PLS, Pulse Chain, is actually huge market cap right now when it comes to everything else, or at least like the amount of money that's inside of it. That's the locked value that's inside the ecosystem. So we'll talk more about that, but it's at a really good price point right now, basically is what I'm trying to say, compared to, to when you compare this specific ecosystem to Ethereum and to the ones that are the comparables. That's at a very low market cap in comparison. So PLS, why PLS? Because they have a platform called liquidloans.io, which I've also done myself. And so you can then take this PLS and take a loan against it. Yeah, so when I say blockchain, think of that as that's the name of the idea of every single project that exists is built on this idea of blockchain. What is blockchain? It's 10 different things. It's the decentralization, right? It's that all the data, all the transactions, the ledger of that ecosystem is diversified. It's in every single computer that's a part of that network. It's immutable, it's permissionless, it's all of these things that creates very tight security. The best comparison to this world that we live in is think of it as an operating system. So just like when you're using the computer, right? We're using Apple operating system, we're using Windows. They're owned by these central systems. Blockchain, it's our operating system. Nobody owns it. It's like walking up to a river in the woods and just using it. You know, God created it. Here you go. Nobody's gonna stop you. And so we can create banks in this operating system. We can, because of that security. So you take the loan against the Bitcoin, you get collateral, or you get the stable coins. Stable coins get invested into PLS. So now you're holding another asset with that loan that you got. Then you can take that PLS and you can take a loan against it. And what's great about this one is that it is much higher LTV. So you get a little extra from it. So this is, this can go anywhere between 30 to 90% LTV. If you put in $110, you can take out $100. So it's like almost 90% or even more sometimes. I wouldn't suggest that. That creates a very tight cushion for, you know, for the price to fluctuate. You guys will learn all that there, but that is something you can do. Then you can take a loan against that and then take that stable coin and then use that. So now you have two layers of loans where your reserve storage of value is Bitcoin. Because why Bitcoin? Because it fluctuates, you know, percentage wise, it's tighter. The volatility of the dollar price of Bitcoin is much tighter than most projects out there. It'll keep the value a little bit more in the price of it. So you use that as a reserve, and then you create this river of loaning collateral to be able to use money that isn't yours. You know, that's what they do. That's what these systems do. And again, in between these, you gotta create the strategies of like, where am I investing it? Where am I putting it? And how, you know, is this money building more wealth? At the end of the day, you want to create that idea that you want the money to work for you so that it requires less energy output of your physical body to generate more currency, right? More assets, more value. Because after this, you know, then you can start going into the other ideas or the other strategies like farming, providing liquidity to exchanges. You can go to decentralized exchanges, provide liquidity to them. We talk about PLS and Pulse Chain, and PulseX is the decentralized exchange for Pulse Chain, and providing liquidity there. Especially with the one that I've been doing with PDAI, which is the stable coin for Pulse Chain. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. This video you just watched is a repurposed session from the weekly live events that I host in the MasterHeart community in the Crypto Freedom Academy. So if you're interested in joining these live sessions where you can ask me questions directly and receive personalized step-by-step guidance on your crypto journey, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram with the word begin and check your messages for a button to click and access some free videos and links. I'll see you on the other side.